Well, you've done the professor thing, haven't you?
I mean, it always feels a little surreal. Yeah. Like I was pulling something over on somebody.
Well, you feel like you're pulling something over on somebody when you but I mean, you've made all this. I mean, you've done these videos, you've done all this filmmaking, and you have like real world experience. I mean,
I would think I just never thought about, I always thought that you needed to learn how to teach people, but I understood I had something to. You understand very quickly when you get in there that you have something to offer the kids.
Right. But
it's a difference between having something and relaying that something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the actual teaching part. Yeah, I know when I first started it took about a month for me to figure out how to actually sort of lecture to students and impart the information.
Mm-hmm. I think there's also a big part of it is in order to teach somebody, you have to get really specific with what you know and organize it as a thought, which you don't normally.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You just sort of do your thing.
It's just kind of a pile of ideas over
you
here.
Sort of do it.
Yeah.
Then to explain it to somebody, you sort of have to. So why do I do that exactly? Yeah. Even like technical things, I can only. It was even worse with screenwriting and stuff.
Right.
Just a lot of stuff that you just sort of absorb.
Do you think the teaching thing, though, the weird thing is it helped me after 25 years. I learned how to talk to the audience after teaching for a semester.
Definitely helped.
I was like, oh yeah, you just linear, loud, a few simple ideas.
It's true. It's true, man. It's totally true.
Yeah, but
it's totally true. So where do you live? Hey, what's up, Justin? How you feeling?
I'm back.
How you feeling?
Okay. Did you have the day off yesterday?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
Where do you live in Richmond?
In Richmond, I live right by Westover Hills, which is right by the Nickel Bridge. Mm-hmm. And but you tell me about this, because this show is mostly broadcasting in Virginia, right? So, when did you come to Richmond?
I went for college. I went to VCU. So I went straight from. I grew up in Columbia, and then went to Richmond in '92. That was the farthest school away from home that I applied to.
Okay. And how long were you in Richmond?
Just the 4 years of college.
Okay, and you went to the VCU Art School?
Yeah.
Yeah, great.
Started in the painting department, and then eventually discovered that I liked taking pictures and did their little photos.
Were you in the new building, like when they had or years before the new building? They have a big complex there.
Huge, I mean, most of the places that we hung out are now parking lots and stuff.
Where did you hang out in Richmond?
There were different clubs. There was this club called the Metro. You might remember.
Yeah. I've been there since 1990.
Yeah. So you know what I mean.
Yeah. So there's the Metro, which is now Sweetwater. It's had a bunch of different names. Yeah, Sweetwater. Did you ever go to the Blue Bottle? Or
I don't remember. I remember the Hole in the Wall.
Hole in the Wall. Yeah.
And there was a couple of spots on the
Hole
other
in the Wall
side
was a great venue, actually.
Yeah.
They always had their
Biograph was there.
Oh yeah,
that was a little later.
Where did you live in Richmond?
Well, I lived in the dorms at first, and then we moved to Oregon Hill.
Oregon Hill. See, that is so weird, because I bet you we lived in Oregon Hill at the same time.
Maybe.
I lived in Oregon Hill till '93.
Oh,
well, maybe just missed you. On Laurel?
On Laurel Street.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
Yeah. So I haven't been over there in a long time. Apparently, it's getting.
It's nicer.
And stuff.
It's nicer.
Yeah.
The end down by the river is like all new. Yeah. But the middle part of the neighborhood, Oregon Hill is like, if people aren't from Richmond, if you're from Charlottesville, Oregon Hill is a very...
If you're from Charlottesville.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of people from Charlottesville who listen to the show, and they won't know what Oregon Hill is.
You've never been to Richmond?
Yeah, but they probably haven't. A lot of people haven't. They're afraid of Richmond But Oregon Hill, the story is that it was a factory neighborhood, and they brought people in from West Virginia because they were loyalists to the Union. Yeah. So culturally, it's different than the rest of the city. It has a different accent.
Do you remember that Cowboy Junkies song?
Yeah, Oregon Hill.
Called Oregon Hill.
Yeah. Well, it's because Mike Timmons' wife lived on Pine.
Is that right?
In the 200 block of Pine Street.
I didn't know that.
So he was always there about this time.
Is that right?
Do you know Michael Hurley, the folk singer?
Yeah, yeah.
He was living on Laurel Street about that time too. And few people knew that. You had what's the guy from Flat Duo Jets was in there about that time too. No, it was Dexter. The weirdest. Yeah, Dexter was in and out of there for some reason. I don't know if he was living there, had a girlfriend there, what the deal was, but it was really an interesting time. Oregon
That's
Hill was.
crazy.
It really produced and then that's of course when I got kind of did my career was living in Oregon Hill. You know, it was just a great cheap place
I
to
just assumed
live.
everybody that was living there was just
Hillbillies?
playing. Well, I knew that.
Oregon
I
Hillbillies.
didn't wonder about that. It was. I just thought they were all wanted to play like Fugazi because that's all we ever heard.
Well, I know, but then there was this sort of folkier, sort of rootsy. I mean, I think two of the guys from that started the Hackensaw Boys, who then Tom went on to play with Modest Mouse.
Yeah.
Was in that neighborhood too at the same time, about the same time. Yeah, so there was just the folk underground.
I guess so. Just seething underneath.
So then when you went to the University of Miami, right? Was that a
Well, no,
shock?
I went to I went to school in Richmond, and then I went to so I got into the film stuff, and then I went down to Florida State because they have a big graduate program.
Okay.
So I went to school there for a little while, and then I went down to Miami right after that to work.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then when my kids came along, I started teaching at this. Everybody thinks I was at Miami University, which probably would have paid a lot better, but but it wasn't. It was like it was called the International Fine Arts College of Miami, which.
So you didn't go to school with The Rock then, or anything like that?
No, I don't have that much scratch, man.
Okay.
It was a great school. It got bought out by Art Institute of everywhere.
Oh, okay.
And everywhere else. You know, that kind of corporate school.
Yeah.
Art Institute of, you name it, there's a school there.
Okay. Did you start recording before or after you had kids?
Before.
Before?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I always had this theory that you were singing soft because you didn't want to wake up you have like 5 daughters. You didn't want to wake up your kids.
I said that as a joke at some point, and it's gotten perpetuated.
Okay.
But it's a nice idea, isn't it?
But and it's.
But at the same, I mean, you do some of that. For sure, it wasn't necessarily because my kids were there, but you know, you don't want to just. Everybody has roommates. You don't necessarily want to be jamming the fuck out. I'm sorry. And,
that's all right.
And you know, wake everybody up. You know, but because you end up working late at night when you do it in your spare time.
I talked to 2 or 3 other people who basically said that too. Actually,
Yeah.
it was like that. I started singing louder on my later record because I actually have a studio to record in. You know,
It's true.
It's funny, but it's so much of the sound that.
Yeah, for me, I thought it worked out okay because the sentiment and the tunes kind of serendipitously it kind of worked together. But yeah, I just did it in my spare time for a long time, and then it was when I got the 4-track. I borrowed it from a friend. That it became making something. I like making things, you know, like art school and all this stuff.
Right.
So then it became, okay, now it's not just noodling around on a guitar and trying to figure out Led Zeppelin tunes.
Right.
It's making something and overdubbing and creating something. And then it just became what I did in spare time, all the time.
Right.
It was fun.
Well, I think the best artists, they do that. They do it just for themselves first. And then, you know, people latch onto it and then you're like, oh, I can do this all the time.
How'd you guys get started with the Beethoven stuff?
Well, I was driving a truck and I studied math, so I was also programming computers in the early days of Silicon Valley and doing like basically quantitative finance, which is sort of a black art, but we won't go into that. I kept like coming in later and later to work because I was playing more and more shows, and eventually, you know, my boss was like, you should just go and do that for a while. This job will always be here. You know, it was like actually the coolest thing that anybody ever did. You know, but you know, you're just coming in later and later, more and more hungover. but you must have had a similar experience. Well, let's talk about this actually. So we were actually about to segue really well into that. Well, now like you actually. Your voice it's not different on every song, but you do sort of employ like sort of a louder voice now, and you have a lot more instruments on it, and you're definitely like doing a full band rock production and stuff like that. And how was that transition?
Well, it's been a long one, so it wasn't like we were doing one thing and all of a sudden, bam, you're doing something else. So it wasn't a very jarring thing for me. It's been a kind of, a decade-long thing, and so I love it. I like the big band because you have options. You know what I mean? You're not stuck, okay, how do I squeeze as much dynamics out of this one.
Yeah, when you have two guitars and your voice and a backing.
Yeah. So you don't have to think, which is a good or a bad thing, depending on how you look at it. But you have a lot more options. You're able to incorporate more of your musical interests. I don't know. You're probably like me. I mean, you listen to everything. It's not like you don't define your life by 2 or 3 records. You define it by how much variety you can fit into one thing.
I haven't fit the necrophagus black metal in yet, though, but
doesn't matter of time, man. Doesn't matter of time.
Actually, well, that's a funny thing. It's people listen to an artist, and generally an artist gets sort of sometimes defined as like, okay, well, they're playing this kind of subgenre of rock right here, but yeah, everybody's iPod is just all over the place. It's
it's easier
a
now
lot of people
than
don't
it ever
realize
was
that
before. I mean, changing the voice. I just don't like the idea of doing the same thing over and over again either. So you try to incorporate.
Because you're doing it for yourself. I would assume.
You should be able to entertain yourself first. If it's not entertaining to you, then how are you going to entertain other people?
I think the audience knows it when it's not.
I think they can tell, don't you?
Yeah.
I mean, and so first and foremost,
it's authenticity.
You have to do something that feels right. You don't feel like you're just repeating yourself.
We were talking about you have to
push yourself.
You have to push yourself, but you have to keep
engaged,
yourself interested because.
So the voice was one element that I could easily change. And I've been doing a bunch of solo shows, and so it's taken me 10 years to sort of learn how to project. That's just one element, a new element that I could use. Yeah, it's definitely fun. And I felt like it matched. They're not really. Love is definitely part of the subject matter of the whole thing, but they're not specifically all intimate love songs like a lot of the old ones used to be. Whereas, and so I felt like it was appropriate to project a bit more. Yeah, you weren't whispering in somebody's ear.
Well, I sort of am making it sound like it was an abrupt change, but if you go through all the albums, it just opens up a little more. And that's all I was saying is that, and it's still approximately the same voice to my ear. But so do you enjoy the process of now I assume you're in a studio with a bunch of other musicians, it's not just yourself.
I love it. I enjoy the process, and I've learned over the years. I was involved in filmmaking, which is a very collaborative process.
A lot of people involved,
and I was really comfortable with that.
Okay, so that made the transition easier for you.
But the music, I didn't, because I was only doing it as a hobby, and I wasn't trained or familiar with playing with other people to much of an extent. It took me a long time to get accustomed to that, because oftentimes it was just, I have an idea, and when you're playing into the 4-track, you're just trying to translate that idea, sort of transcribe it from your lobe to the tape.
Right.
And so when you started to go into the studio, it was kind of the same thing, and it was a very frustrating thing because it's very rare that you can actually recreate. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not really possible. You just try to get something close, and you're either pleasantly surprised or just really disappointed, which was most of what I was experiencing. But over the course of the thing, of course of the years, you learn that it's much more fun to be surprised and surround yourself with people, that approach music differently than you do, and that you trust, and then it becomes, the success or failure of your day in the studio isn't so much whether you transcribed what you wanted to tape. It's like, did I surprise myself? Did we create something that I didn't know we could make?
Right.
And that's much more fun, it seems like to me. It's been a while developing this this philosophy, but that's where we're at now.
Okay. Well, do you think let me just throw this theory out at you, just because you did come from like fine arts and stuff like that. I've thought that the central contradiction of being an artist songwriter is that there's a role that's like the writer of the movie, and then the director of the movie. And do you do you have trouble with that conflict? Is that you have to have these two roles? You have to be very inside your head to write the music, and then you have to be outside of your head to make it translate.
It's a very different job.
That was my question.
No, I know what you mean. It's a starting point. Now discuss.
Yeah.
It's very similar because you try to make a script, or a set of lyrics and a melody that are elastic, generous to interpretation. You know what I mean? But are strong at the center of it. Have a center. And then it depends on what kind of direction you want to be. If you want to be, it must be this way, and everyone must, be slave to my vision. That is one way to make it. And then there are people like Altman who just sort of set the stage and said, okay, actors, come in and do what you want, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But it's always fun.
Which side do you think you were on?
Well, I think
the Herzog or the.
I think I started a bit more the latter, and or the former. I started a bit more former, and now it's more the latter, where it's more just fun to organize. Your planning is less to do with what will actually end up on the tape, but more about who the players are going to be. You know what I mean? Who the elements are going to be, and then throw them in and see what happens. But then you also get final say on what stays and how the thing gets shaped. Because I'm one of the players as well. So it's definitely much more fun.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Sam, thanks so much for being here with us. I mean, that's we have such a good long discussion and very interesting.
Well,
actually.
It's fun to talk to kindred spirits.
Yeah. So anyway, we're looking forward to the show tonight.
Thank you.
And do we need any? I'll do this later. I'll do the. I'll just do this, and will make me do this later as a voiceover anyway. Hi, this is David Lowery, and you're listening to or watching Radio VA, and we're here with Sam Bean from Iron and Wine. So I'll do it later.